This day and time. What happened today, years ago.
Have you ever really stopped to think about how quickly history can just turn on a dime?
Absolutely.
How sometimes just a handful of days can reshape not just years, but, well, whole centuries.
It's quite remarkable when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Setting completely new paths for nations, for science, even for human rights.
It really is. So today we're embarking on a pretty fascinating deep dive. We've pulled together a unique stack of sources highlighting these pivotal events. And what's interesting is they each happened on a successive day, right? But across different eras, all crammed into one critical week in history.
Yeah, that sequence is what's so compelling.
Right. So our mission really is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from these accounts, kind of offer you a shortcut to understanding these huge moments that can feel, overwhelming as just scattered facts. We'll get into their context, the key people involved, and their lasting impact.
And what's truly striking here, looking at these sources, is how you see these snapshots. From political purges one day to massive scientific leaps, another. It just demonstrates this relentless march, doesn't it? Human ambition, discovery, conflict, all compressed into this incredibly significant 7-day window.
It really underscores how pivotal certain moments can be.
Exactly. And as we go through these, maybe think about what really stands out to you about just how quickly profound change can happen.
Okay, let's jump right in. We're starting this historical journey on June 30th, 1934.
Go.
Our first stop takes us to Germany, an event known chillingly as the Night of the Long Knives.
It's ominous.
And it absolutely was. Our sources tell us after Hitler became chancellor in 1933, his main goal was consolidating power. Absolute power.
Right. Getting control.
But an internal threat popped up. The Sturmabteilung, the SA, or Brown Shirts, led by Ernst Röhm.
Ah, the SA. They'd been crucial for Hitler's rise, hadn't they? The muscle on the streets.
Exactly. But now, this huge paramilitary force, millions strong, wanted to replace the traditional German army, the Reichswehr.
And that wasn't going to fly with the old guard.
Not at all. Plus, the radical social views worried the military establishment and German capitalists. Hitler, well, he needed the Reichswehr's loyalty. Badly. For his authority and, his future plans.
And what's really insightful here, from the accounts, is that this wasn't just some internal party spat. No.
Much more calculated.
Oh, deeply calculated. A brutal move by Hitler to just wipe out any potential challenge to his absolute authority.
Right.
From inside his party, and also any lingering political rivals.
A demonstration of force.
A terrifying one.
Yeah.
Showing his willingness to use extreme, completely extra-legal violence. So on the night of June 30th, stretching into July 1st, Hitler gives the order.
And the SS and Gestapo Act.
Immediately, a nationwide purge, the main targets, top SA leaders, Ernst Röhm specifically, arrested in Bad Weisse, shot shortly after.
But it didn't stop there, did it?
No, the purge extended. Former political rivals like ex-Chancellor Kurt von Schleicher, former Nazi leader Gregor Strasser, they were targeted too. Swift arrests, secret executions. He was meant to send a very clear, very brutal message.
And the impact, it must have been immediate.
Oh, immediate and chillingly effective. It just completely eliminated the SA as any kind of independent political or military force.
Cementing Hitler's power.
Absolutely. And it marked the undeniable rise of the SS and the Gestapo. They became the key instruments of Nazi oppression from then on.
And crucially, he got the army on side.
Right. He gained that unwavering support of the Reichswehr. They saw the SA as a threat to their own position, so they were, frankly, relieved.
And just weeks later, Hindenburg dies.
And Hitler just merges the roles. President, Chancellor, becomes Führer. Total power seized. Almost effortlessly, it seemed, after that purge.
And that name, Night of the Long Knives. It's grim that Nazi media actually used it themselves.
Yeah, deliberately invoking a medieval German term for a massacre. It was all about instilling fear.
Okay, so from that calculated internal brutality, we shift gears completely. But just one day later, July 1st, 1916.
To the chaos of external war, the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah. This part of our dive, looking at the sources, it's incredibly tragic.
It really is.
World War I, bogged down. Just brutal trench warfare on the Western Front. A stalemate.
And the idea here was to break that stalemate.
Exactly. Relieve the immense pressure on the French down at Verdun and try to achieve a decisive breakthrough against the German lines. So the British and French planned this massive offensive near the Somme River.
Under General Douglas Haig for the British.
Right. And his plan, our sources show, relied heavily on this huge week-long artillery barrage.
The thinking being it would just obliterate the German line.
Pulverize them, destroy the barbed wire, everything. Clear the way for the infantry to just walk across.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
this day just became this stark, enduring symbol.
Yeah.
The futility, the horror of trench warfare.
A total mismatch.
A tragic mismatch. Outdated tactics, walking slowly across no man's land against modern defensive firepower, machine guns.
So 7:30 a.m., July 1st, 1916. After what was, at the time, the largest artillery bombardment in history, the British troops attack.
Tens of thousands of them. Heavily equipped, ordered to just march.
But the bombardment hadn't worked. Not really.
No, a lot of the barbed wire was still intact. And those German dugouts.
Incredibly deep. They protected the soldiers from the shells.
So as the British infantry advanced, those German machine guns just opened up. The effect was, well, devastating, almost unimaginable.
The outcome was catastrophic doesn't even seem strong enough. July 1st, 1916.
The bloodiest day in British Army history,
The numbers are staggering. 57,470 casualties.
including 19,240 killed in a single day.
Just horrific. The attack, for the most part, was a monumental failure. Only tiny breakthroughs at this immense human cost.
And the battle itself just dragged on for months. Huge losses on both sides, very little strategic gain. It cemented the Somme as the symbol of WWI's awful nature.
And reading the accounts, it's just heartbreaking. Knowing that many British soldiers actually wrote farewell letters, made wills before the attack.
They sensed it. They knew it was likely coming.
Okay, leaving the battlefields of Europe now, our focus shifts again, a different kind of struggle. This time for civil rights in America.
Moving forward in time.
Right. We arrive at July 2nd, 1964, a day that marked a really monumental step towards equality in the United States.
On time coming.
Decades. Our sources clearly show how African Americans, especially in the South, faced just systemic segregation and discrimination. Jim Crow laws. Entrenched. But the civil rights movement gained huge momentum in the 50s, early 60s, using nonviolent protests, boycotts, legal challenges, demanding basic equality.
And President Kennedy had proposed a bill.
He had a comprehensive civil rights bill, but it was stuck in Congress. Fierce opposition, particularly from Southern legislators.
Filibusters.
Exactly. Then, after Kennedy's assassination in November 63, President Lyndon B. Johnson, he commits. He makes passing this bill his absolute top priority.
In this moment, it really brings up an important point. How does a law, even a powerful one, actually reshape society?
Right? It's not automatic.
No. This act was absolutely critical, a legal foundation. But the journey for real, lived equality. Yeah. Well, that obviously continued long after the signing.
Of course. So after months of intense debate, facing down that strong Southern opposition, those long filibusters, the bill finally passes Congress.
A major legislative achievement.
Huge. And then President Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law in a televised White House ceremony. A visible, powerful moment.
Sending ripples across the nation and beyond, really.
Unquestionably one of the most important laws in U.S. history. It prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
Covering a lot of ground.
Specifically, it ended segregation in public accommodations, schools, workplaces, restaurants, hotels, cinemas, you name it. And it banned employment discrimination. A huge leap forward for racial equality.
And it set the stage for more.
Absolutely. Paved the way for more vital legislation like the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
And it's interesting how Johnson really leveraged his political know-how.
Oh, massively. Our sources mention his seasoned political skills, using Kennedy's legacy, applying pressure. He knew how to work the system to overcome that fierce opposition. A fascinating example of political will driving huge social change.
It really is.
Okay, so from a legislative battle for rights, we jump back again. Back to an actual battlefield.
Different century this time.
Yes, back to July 3rd, 1863. A pivotal moment in the American Civil War. Gettysburg.
Right. The war is raging in 1863.
And Confederate General Robert E. Lee. He launches his second invasion of the North. He's hoping for a decisive win on Union soil.
Why? What was the strategic goal?
To pressure Lincoln's government for peace talks, maybe even gain European recognition for the Confederacy. So Lee's army meets the Union Army of the Potomac, led by General George Meade, near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, July 1st.
And the battle had already been going on for 2 days.
Fiercely. Heavy losses on both sides by July 3rd.
And this is where we get Pickett's charge.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how this single, almost desperate charge became the symbol, the high water mark of the Confederacy.
The absolute furthest they reach.
Militarily, yes. The point they just couldn't push past. So on this third day, July 3rd, Lee orders this massive artillery barrage first, trying to soften up the Union lines on Cemetery Ridge.
And then the infantry assault.
Right. Across open fields, it becomes known as Pickett's Charge, named after General George Pickett, 1 Division commander.
How many men?
About 12,500 Confederate soldiers, marching over a mile, under intense Union artillery and rifle fire. The sources describe it vividly. The charge was just shattered, repulsed with horrific Confederate casualties.
A disaster for Lee.
Absolutely disastrous. Its failure irrevocably marked that high water mark, a decisive turning point in the Civil War.
Lee's army suffered losses it just couldn't replace.
Right, forced to retreat back to Virginia. And this, combined with the Union victory out west at Vicksburg, Mississippi, which fell the next day, July 4th significantly weakened the Confederacy's ability to fight.
The momentum shifts.
Dramatically, firmly to the Union side. From Gettysburg onwards, the Confederate Army was mostly on the defensive.
And it's interesting, that detail about the name, Pickett's Charge.
Yeah, despite the name, it included divisions from other generals too, like Pettigrew and Trimble. Pickett himself commanded only about a third of the attacking force. History remembers names, though.
It certainly does. Okay, so from a battle that tried to break a nation, we move to the very moment a nation declared itself into existence.
The next day, chronologically in our week, but jumping back in time again.
Exactly. July 4th, 1776. A date just etched into global consciousness.
Absolutely. The Declaration of Independence.
Our sources lay out the background clearly. Tensions between Great Britain and its 13 North American colonies, brewing for years.
Taxation without representation.
Harsh British laws, military presence, the usual suspects. The American Revolutionary War had actually already started, April 1775.
Lexington and Concord.
Right, so the Second Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. Delegates from all 13 colonies addressing this volatile situation.
And not everyone was initially on board for full independence.
No, not initially. But the ongoing battles, King George's refusal to negotiate, it pushed the momentum firmly towards separation.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Declaration wasn't just, a breakup letter to Britain.
Much more than that.
Oh, hugely more. It became this global blueprint and inspiration, fundamentally influencing future independence movements, discussions on universal human rights. Its echoes are still felt today.
So the sources detail that on July 2nd, 1776, Congress actually voted in favor of resolution declaring independence.
Right. The decision was made then.
Exactly. Then they focused on the wording. Revising the draft Declaration of Independence, primarily written by Thomas Jefferson.
Lots of debate and edits, I imagine.
Oh, yes. But after a few days, it was officially adopted by Congress on July 4th, 1776. This monumental document declared the 13 colonies as independent states, no longer under British rule.
And laid out the why.
Crucially, laid out the philosophical reasons, natural rights, consent of the governed, foundational ideas.
And its adoption officially proclaimed the birth of the United States of America, providing that deep ideological foundation: liberty, equality, pursuit of happiness. Principles that echo down the centuries.
It served not just as that statement of independence, but also as an appeal, an inspiration for movements worldwide.
And practically it signaled to European powers, didn't it?
Yes, especially France. Saying, look, we're serious, we're independent, we could be allies against Britain.
Strategic move, too.
Definitely. And here's a fascinating detail. Although it was adopted on July 4th, that famous copy we all picture with the big signatures, most delegates didn't actually sign that specific engrossed copy until August 2nd, 1776.
So the date we celebrate is the adoption, not the main signing event.
Exactly. Speaks to the whole process, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, quite a shift now.
Yes. Now let's pivot, completely different realm. From forming nations to understanding the very fabric of the universe itself. July 5th, 1687.
Okay, let's unpack this.
This is about a book that literally changed how we understand the world.
Principia Mathematica.
Isaac Newton's masterpiece. The 17th century, our sources confirm, was the peak of the scientific revolution. You had Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, already transforming our view of the cosmos.
That something was missing.
Right. A comprehensive framework explaining why. Why do objects move the way they do? On Earth, in the heavens? What connects it all?
And Newton provides it.
He does. After years of research into motion, gravity, and crucially developing the mathematics needed calculus.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how this single work didn't just describe what happens, it explained why.
It gave us the rules.
Exactly. It provided a unified theoretical system for what we now call classical mechanics, seamlessly connecting terrestrial and celestial movements. It laid the groundwork for physical science for centuries. It fundamentally changed the approach to science.
So July 5th, 1687, Newton's monumental work, Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, is published in London.
3 volumes.
Presenting his laws of motion, Newton's laws, and the universal law of gravitation, using the precise language of mathematics, especially calculus, which he co-developed.
Explaining everything from falling apples to planetary orbits, all with the same set of principles.
Principia Mathematica, undeniably one of the most important scientific works ever. It unified classical mechanics, linked Earth and heavens. That law of universal gravitation explained planetary orbits, why things fall.
Revolutionized physics and astronomy.
Established the foundation for physical science for over 2 centuries, and just proved the incredible power of mathematics to unlock the secrets of the natural world.
It really did.
And here's an incredible detail. Edmund Halley, yes, the Halley's Comet guy. He was instrumental. He convinced Newton to publish Principia, and when the Royal Society was short on funds, Halley actually paid for the printing himself.
Wow. Talk about back in the winter. A true patron of science.
Absolutely. Okay, final day in our extraordinary week. We come to July 6th, 1885.
Another shift, this time to medicine.
A victory not for nations or physics, but for human health against a truly terrifying disease, rabies.
Yeah, rabies was horrifying. Our sources describe it well. An infectious disease, almost always fatal once symptoms showed up.
Transmitted usually by bites from infected animals, often dogs. And back then, late 19th century, no effective treatment, no prevention.
Until Pasteur.
Until Louis Pasteur, the pioneering French chemist and microbiologist. He'd already made huge discoveries with germ theory, developed other vaccines like for anthrax.
And he'd been working on rabies for years.
Tirelessly, trying to attenuate the pathogen, basically weaken it to create a vaccine.
And beyond just the medical breakthrough itself, this moment was really pivotal, wasn't it, for public health?
How so?
Well, it demonstrated the incredible potential of vaccination on a massive scale. It really solidified germ theory in the public mind and, just opened the floodgates for countless other life-saving vaccines.
Right. So July 6, 1885. This 9-year-old boy, Joseph Meister, is brought to Pasteur by his mother. He'd been severely bitten by a rabid dog.
A death sentence, essentially, at the time.
Pretty much. Now, Pasteur wasn't a licensed physician, which was a risk for him, but given the boy's critical condition, seemingly hopeless, he decides. He uses his experimental rabies vaccine.
Which had only worked in animals so far.
Exactly, only tested successfully on animals. So Pasteur and his colleagues, they administer a series of injections to Joseph Meister over 10 days. The boy survived. He didn't develop rabies. It worked.
Wow. Just incredible.
That successful treatment was dramatic. Public proof of the vaccine's effectiveness. It got worldwide attention, like immediately.
And led to the Pasteur Institute.
Directly. Established in Paris in 1888. Became a world-leading research center for infectious diseases for vaccines. This invention saved countless lives from rabies globally, a massive triumph for modern medicine.
Solidifying germ theory, opening the door for so many other vaccines we rely on today.
It really did, and a final, really poignant detail about Joseph Meister. He later became a caretaker at the Pasteur Institute, lived a long life thanks to that vaccine. But tragically, he's said to have committed suicide in 1940.
Why?
When German forces occupied Paris during World War II. The story goes, it was to prevent German soldiers from desecrating Louis Pasteur's crypt, which he guarded.
Goodness, what a testament to Pasteur. Loyalty and reverence, right to the end.
A powerful, sad footnote. So let's step back. What does this all mean when we put it together?
This whole week.
Yeah. We've just navigated this remarkable 7-day sequence, though spread across centuries, moments of intense political consolidation, devastating warfare,
Foundational national declarations, civil rights breakthroughs.
scientific revolutions that changed our view of the cosmos, medical miracles that saved countless lives.
It really shows how quickly, how profoundly the world can shift.
Absolutely, and how these individual moments, when you look at them in sequence like this, they reveal this incredible interconnected tapestry of human history. Ingenuity, conflict, progress, it's all there. So for you, the listener, we hope this deep dive hasn't just given you facts, but maybe a deeper appreciation for how connected these pivotal moments are.
And perhaps spark some curiosity.
Yeah, maybe sparked a curiosity to dig even deeper into any one of them. There's so much more to explore.
In this week of history, it really does remind us that progress, conflict, discovery, they're rarely isolated things, are they?
No, they ripple outwards.
Exactly. They're often born from and lead to this cascade of consequences that echo across time, which I think raises a really important question for all of us.
Which is,
What crucial historical turning points might we be living through right now? Unknowingly, perhaps. And how will they be understood years or even centuries from now?
that's a fascinating thought to end on. Something to definitely mull over.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more history daily.